Hello, pickleball people. What's going on, everybody? Today, we're going to chat about two paddles from the new line of paddles by LUXE Pickleball. So, the first is their premier paddle. First off, look at all that ball dust. That is a lot of ball dust right there. So, second is the signature paddle. Started out here with the signature and the premier paddle by LUXE. So the paddle that I really want to focus on first is the signature paddle. So this, in my opinion, I would classify this as a control paddle, um, pretty firmly in the control category. You have that kind of elongated leaning into the original standard, not the wide body standard, the original standard from the pre-2020 days, where this was more of like a standard paddle shape, is the shape I'd kind of give it. But it is technically an elongated face. It is a 5.5-inch handle, big enough for two-handed backhands, as displayed there. The swing weight of mine was 117. So it actually comes in at a pretty, decent-ish swing weight for an elongated paddle. Pretty average, I'd say, in terms of swing weight. And I did add lead tape. I added lead tape right here on both sides of it. Kind of in that like 4 to 8 range, but more kind of leaning almost, into kind of 5 to 10, I'd say. Or I'm sorry, 3 and 7 as well. But, just kind of staying away from the bottom corners on this because I really wanted to keep the whip, but add into the twist weight area and really open up the sweet spot, really emphasize, in my opinion, what the paddle does well, which is allowing you to control the ball. You know, it is 2025. We are just coming off of the era of power paddles per se, and I think that because of that, it's going to lead a lot of people to being deterred per se from control paddles. But I think a lot of people would benefit from a paddle like the Lux Signature paddle. And I think that it's a good fit for them. It's 16 millimeter, has a long handle, long enough for, two-handed shots or reach. And it's a good paddle overall. I would highly recommend it. And I think that you should definitely check out their website, check out, the retailers that are selling them, and definitely take a look at the signature. Now, the second paddle I want to talk about is the Premier paddle. So this, as you can see, they're fairly similar shapes. I think this one's a little more square personally, and then this one's a little more round. I actually really, for some reason, I preferred this shape, everything but the handle on this one. For some reason, the handle on this one is way more boxy. You can even see my thumb is pressing it right there than the handle on this one. This one's way less boxy. And I don't love that about this. With that being said, there are ways to get around it. If I were to play this as, a main per se or something like that, I might strip it and do a different kind of undergrip, something like that, maybe a hexacore or something like that to kind of get around that boxy feel. But with that being said, handle aside, this is a great paddle. This paddle surprised me. So I'm going to be honest. Look, guys, we get a lot of the newer brands here at DDOG Pickleball, and I actually love that about it personally. I love bringing light to the newer brands as well as the well-established brands. But with that being said, I didn't really know much about this paddle going into it, and I was blown away by it. So there's no other way of putting it. I would firmly put this paddle as all court. I don't think it's leaning power. And if I were to lean it, I would lean it a touch control. But I think this is a great place in terms of power of a paddle to be in pickleball right now. Because I think the all court category, especially, if I was talking for me personally, I'm an all court paddle guy, 100%. That's, where I find I shine the best. Maybe leaning into power or like a low end power paddle. That's the best paddle for me personally. I've played, I've mained control paddles, I've mained power paddles. All court is usually where I end up, somewhere along those lines. With that being said, this paddle really defines all court well. It does a little bit of everything well. It can dink. I feel like when I drove the ball with this, I really did not miss drives long all that often. And I liked that. I don't really want a paddle where if I'm just going to touch the ball and it's going to fly into the back fence. That doesn't really do it for me. That's a great way in which you can not really gain a lot of benefits from a paddle. And I found this paddle was very beneficial. Add the fast hands at the net. The swing weight for this one for me was 118. And with that being said, that gives some room for customization. It puts it kind of in the same boat as the blue one. I did the same exact spot actually on this, ironically, and I don't know if it's just a Lux thing or just a good, spot for these, elongated paddles in generals, which let me rephrase that. I do know it is a good spot for paddles like this, and it really opens up this sweet spot and allows it to gain more plow through as well as more swing without really giving up a lot of hand speed. If you're going to add additional lead to this, I would do the sides, just run it right up like this. I think that's the best way to do this paddle. That sweet spot is just going to grow even more, and you're going to get a little more power in it, and then it'll creep into kind of the solely, all court category and not lean control as much. With that being said, I did like that it leaned control, and I really enjoyed it. Um, it's a good paddle. It's a very, basic design. I actually really liked having these lines here. It reminded me of like I don't know, like an etch a sketch, like kind of like a tic-tac-toe board or something like that. I really liked it about it. And then I will say this, guys, these paddles are fairly spinny and they're fairly, good and they do the little things well. It reminds me a lot of when the Carbon, 1X, 2X, and 3X came out at first and they were really popular and they kind of died down, and they were kind of waiting to put the True Foams out, which they, probably will eventually here some point in 2025. But, stuff like that. These paddles remind me a lot similar to those paddles. This is a great overall Gen 2 paddle. There's really nothing you can do wrong per se with the Premier. Maybe other than give it a touch more power, but even then, you might sacrifice some of the good things it's doing. Same thing with the Signature for those of you that like a control paddle, which again, you know, I would probably recommend this more than I would the Premier. With that being said, though, I know my audience and I know they're more of a power audience right now. So I would recommend the Premier if that's what you're looking for in this specific, we'll call it the Yola Perseus shape. And yeah, this is my review. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe and keep checking out the channel. All right. Adios.